PowerPoint Live, come on. There we go. Hopefully
Got
everyone
it.
can see that on your screen. Oh, awesome.
Yeah.
First and foremost, thank you everyone. I know it takes a lot to have a few extra hours at the end of a very long day to dedicate to joining these user groups, joining hopefully a local community, or if you're dialing in from afar, just finding a community that resonates with you. I absolutely love these things. It's where I've met a lot of great friends here, through the interwebs and user communities. So I always love kind of giving back my time. Within that, though, tonight it's not a beginner session. Uh, we are doing some deep dives in some areas which I always think are fun, and if I think they're interesting, I want to share those with other people because they might find them interesting and it might inspire something within them. But like Kevin had said, at any point in time, absolutely ask questions, come off mute. You'll find that I'm a very transparent and fun guy in the sense of like, just jump in. If you're struggling with something and something resonates with you from this session, absolutely. If we can get you unblocked, let's do it. With that, though, I need to introduce myself. So my name is Alex Powers. I am a program manager here at Microsoft on the Power BI customer advisory team. So we're a elite group of ninjas, I think is the way Adam describes it, who help our largest strategic enterprise customers, obviously any technical blockers, and hopefully adopting kind of Power BI and making successful implementations thereof. My background, though, professionally, I am from a M365 background, is the new name. I'm still getting it off the tip of my tongue here, but Excel, Microsoft Access, SharePoint, whatever it was I could get my hands on, I absolutely loved it. I came up with crazy, unique, I wouldn't say scalable solutions, but they work for my small departments. Within that, though, eventually found Power BI. Like everything I've been doing, all this VBA I've been writing, getting rid of it. Don't need it anymore. From there, Azure. After Azure, I don't know what's next. I think we're kind of done with the metaverse. I don't hear anyone talking about it. It's no longer a thing. I don't know. Let me know if you're seeing differently. It seems like it's all GPT lately. Personal though, I'm not a robot. I'm not all technology all the time, though. I will say probably like 23 hours a day. Cats, professional wrestling, and data, kind of my big three interests there. And then I also was Time Magazine's Person of the Year in 2006. If you don't believe me, obviously feel free to look it up. But within that too, dashboard in a days, getting started sessions, started in a dashboard in a day. Now I'm here. I was the person who sat in that chair, who saw the technology and said, oh my goodness, this could change so many things for me, for my career, for the places I wanted to go. It's not nerdy in the sense of wanting to dig deep into technology, finding new friends as we go here as well, sharing, learning, growing. This is why I absolutely love this stuff, and especially the low to no code side of the technology. That's me. Get into tonight. Tonight, the objective, pushing our transformations to our data sources query language to retrieve and transform data. So this is the concept of query folding, taking our steps, translating those back into the source's native querying language, and then hopefully not breaking the fold kind of as we progress. I do want to introduce at least some Power Query formula language concepts as well, which I think are important. You're learning the language new today. I'll ask you frankly to just spend a little bit of time maybe learning these, what is it, like 12 or 14 different concepts. Learn it once and it pays off for a lifetime. Awesome. Query folding. One of the most powerful capabilities of Power Query and the M language. So this crazy concept of this Power Query formula language where it connects to a SQL server, where it can connect to a Custo database, Dataverse, Teradata, Oracle, whatever it is. This language is kind of that abstraction layer where it can go ahead and intelligently translate the formula into hopefully a SQL statement or a SQL-like statement, Custo query language as well, so KQL. But within that, query folding, one of the most powerful capabilities when you start wrapping your head around this, the world just opens up. So putting this into kind of a visual diagram now, we have a database that we're going to connect to. We see our Power Query UI. Underneath it, there's this crazy mashed up M language that we see here, multiple lines, multiple steps. What does it all mean? At the time, hopefully we would never have to get it in and actually look at the code. Everything that we need to do or need to perform, hopefully is just driven through the UI. So the points and the clicks, filtering rows, transforming our columns, whatever it may be. From that, though, our points and clicks can be translated back into this native source systems language. In this example, just show me the rows where the gender equals F. Power Query is able to intelligently translate this into select everything from the dim customer table where the gender is equal to F. If you don't know SQL today, maybe this is something that you can start leveraging the UI to put those pieces together. So when I do this, like a select rows operation, it includes a where statement. I didn't know SQL. It's something I've learned over time. So I absolutely love kind of the no code, low code people that are coming in and now learning these new capabilities. But this point and click translation back into the querying language, back to the source system, all the heavy lifting done remotely. Awesome. So how do we know when this folding operation is occurring? On the right-hand side within Power Query, this is a photo of Power Query online, and we'll talk about that more in depth as we go to. There are now these visual step indicator icons. In this example, it's a green database with a lightning bolt. This means that there is a folding event that is occurring. In Power BI Desktop or in Excel, so these are those offline clients. For today, it may still be listed as View Native Query, but just up in the service view where it's called View Data Source Query. Awesome. Partial folding is important. This is very important. You started pointing and clicking, folding events are occurring, everything is awesome. You then do something, this red indicator pops out and says, you're no longer folding, what's going on? It doesn't do that. You'll see the icon, you'll understand that it's not folding at this point in time, but at no point is Power Query trying to stop you. This way, people can still maintain a consistent workflow. So we're not stopping you, not asking you to rebuild, but some of these transformations will be offloaded from your source system. So let's say that SQL database into this mashup engine to compensate for these additional transformations. Here in this event, I applied some steps. I filtered those rows. I had this great green icon on the right-hand side. And at the very end here, I now moved into this red not folding indicator. No point in time am I stopped, am I blocked? I can still doing additional transformations to this, but just be aware at this point in time, we have now broke the fold. Step diagnostic indicators. So we have our folding, not folding, might fold, just kind of a guess up in the air, the opaque, and then obviously here unknown. Folding, it will be evaluated by the data source. Not folding indicator lets us know that something is being evaluated outside of that remote system. Might fold it, I don't really know. It basically is for ODBC or OData connections. At that point in time, always trust the logs whenever you can get to that telemetry. Opaque, meaning, I don't know, I wasn't able to generate a query plan, which we'll look at here in this session. So at that point in time, just inconclusive, it can't definitively state. And then just unknown here at the very bottom. Once again, just if there is an absence of a query plan, which we'll see with records list or primitive values. Those are our scalar values. Pause here. Now I've given a lot of information. Query folding, partial folding, step indicator icons. Any questions thus far?
I haven't seen any questions, right?
Yep.
Just to add one thing of right why this is important, and just kind of a real life thing that happened to me about a week ago with a developer, to where he had queries and he actually like put the queries inside there and they weren't folding, right? And he referenced or duplicated another one just to get a min and a max state, right? Did it two times. And then when we did the refresh, I was showing him how that was running really long and all three queries ran the exact same query, and explained to him how it was bringing things back into the mashup engine just to get to that point. He changed it. We looked at it again. We could see there was less stress on the database because of that. So that's a reason why it's extremely important.
Yeah. Yeah, kind of a great story from one of our local user group members. They had a data set refresh taking about 90 minutes. Whenever we started introducing query folding to them, their eyes lit up wide and they're like, what is this thing? So they looked back at their steps. There was an operation very early on that broke the folding. As soon as they fixed that, it then took their refresh time down to 3 minutes. So from 90 minutes to 3 minutes, this is a very real reality, which is something you always want to kind of check on. I love Jack's comments here in the chat too.
Did you see Chris's question in there?
I did, but I'm not going to take any of them just yet.
Okay.
Because I'll do that once we get into service. And Jack, I'll expand upon yours as well. So let me continue here. So in this event of a partial folding activity, we've connected out to our source system. In this example, you know what? I'm a SQL expert. I'm just going to write it myself. I don't trust this UI-driven activity. I don't need it. I don't need these points and clicks. At that point in time, anything I want to do on top of this native statement, it does have the potential to be exclusively done within the mashup engine. We'll get into how we can work around this, at least within SQL Server. But at this point, I have to take all of the data, stream it into the mashup engine. At this point in time, it has some containers for storage where it'll apply some transformational logic for us to page that information to disk. At that point, kind of read it once again and apply some additional transformation logic. You can see we're just a never-ending cycle. If you're experiencing long durations of that refresh time, more than likely you were stuck in this mashup engine. This is where you're getting throttled. And then, Paul, we're going to mute you here. Enjoy the dinner. Something to be aware of. So if you see those streamings, see refresh times increasing, check and make sure that you have not broken the fold. Cool. So recommended practices, as Kevin had kind of discussed just a moment ago. Some of the real world scenarios, how I would recommend thinking about your logic as you move forward. Think about it like an upside down pyramid. Very top is the widest point of all of your data. First things you should do is focus on obviously reducing the columns that you're needed, reducing the rows that are needed. So those selecting and filtering operations, of course, just the very bottom. If you have to join, bring it together, hopefully at a point where the data is at its smallest. After that stage, start looking into transformations, applying some of those logic. There are some operations that may not fold, and I'll kind of share a list with everyone here. But this way, if you do have to break the fold, it's whenever your data has hopefully significantly reduced in size. Nice little yellow. You do an unsupported operation with one of your very first steps. Could you imagine that the first thing you did, you jumped into Power Query, was break the fold operation? Oh my goodness. At that point, you're having to take all of that data, stream it into the mashup engine. From that stage, remote source, unsupported operation. There we go. The longer your refresh times take, the more things are just burning up, getting throttled in that mashup engine. Check your early steps. Reduce the data if you can. I'll have to work with the presentation here. Awesome. All right, so Power Query M formula language. Something else I wanted to share before we kind of jump in. It is a querying language optimized for building queries that mash up data. So M is for mashup. Here, just higher order, dynamically typed, partially lazy. This is where we can do a lot of inventive and functional things here because it can be treated like a functional language. So if you're used to functional programming, think about it from that lens as well. So both a querying language and a functional language. Primitive values. Talk about these at the very beginning. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Whew. 10 different primitive values. I would say if you could spend just 5 minutes of your day one time throughout your entire life to just learn these, commit these to memory, oh my goodness, they will pay dividends for you. Not very difficult. So if I was to look at date, the pattern for date is a hash date, 2018-710, so that is year, month, date. I look at time, 1830, so military time, hours, minutes, seconds. I was to look at date time here, just in combination, year, month, day, hours, minutes, seconds. Goodness, there's a pattern here. Very easy to go ahead and solve this stuff. Duration is a little bit more interesting just in the context of days, hours, minutes, and then seconds. So in this example, it's 1 day, 0 hours, 0 minutes, 0 seconds. Logical, true and false, null equals null. Number can contain interesting things here, whether it be in 64, in 32, in 16, in 8, or type decimal. Don't worry about any of that, though. Just throw all that out. You can learn that the next 5 minutes you have. And then, of course, just text at the very bottom here, hello world. Structured values. 3 more items I'd ask you to commit to. So another 5 minutes of your day. So how do I build a list in Power Query? Curly brace, in this example, I have 2 text types, and I also have a string, so I understand my list can store multiple different value types. Here for record, I have a key value pair, so A equals 10, B equals 20, and then of course here at the very bottom, table, hash table, open parenthesis, this crazy curly brace, double quote animal, double quote, close curly, 2 items, cats and dogs. What does this stuff even mean? Let's actually look like if it was actual code. Whew. Formatted code goes a long way. For table, I now recognize animal is my column headers argument. And then I have a list of values. Here in this example, I have 2 rows in my table. One is for cat, the other one is for dog. Why am I a big fan of formatted code? Just so much better, so much easier to read than that hamburger of Power Query M that it generates. If you've not already done so, I would encourage you to go out and download the Power Query SDK or the Power Query language formatter. They have fuzzy autocompletes. They have code formatting built in. You can also start running or testing your queries outside of kind of the Power Query online environment. So highly recommend going to check this out if you've not already done so.
Well, he's on this page.
Yeah.
Oh, you moved on. Those links, the way he's presenting, are clickable for you right now if you want to just click on it to save it.
Yes. For those great benefits of Teams. So Power Query SDK, we'll drop it in the chat here as well. And then we're jumping right in. So hopefully everyone is ready. We have a good knowledge base now for folding. Awesome. One moment here, I'm going to transfer over to my screen.
Well, maybe I can ask a question if we're in between. So I think it was in a guy in a cube a couple weeks ago. I think Alex and Kevin both chatted something like hashtag 64 gigabyte club. Am I remembering wrong? Does either of you remember that? It has to do with having 64, I guess, gigs of RAM in a machine.
Yeah, well, or on our personal, like my laptop
Right. So,
has that.
and the reason why I'm asking is, so if you're folding well, you don't need that for your Power Query, your mashup engine, right? Like, are you using it for, like, the once it's in the report side and you're writing measures? I don't know. What is the 64 gigs for if you're folding everything?
That's kind of, let's save that for afterwards. That's kind of off topic.
Okay.
Go ahead, Alex. You're on mute, by the way, Alex.
Oh my goodness, I agree. I gave the perfect response, Aman. A lot of the memory needed is for the analysis services engine and to do the compression and processing. So that's where it's really helpful to kind of have that gigs and gigs of RAM.
Mine is the number of browser windows I keep open.
Oh, that's even better too. Excellent. So we talked about kind of Power Query here. We're now up in the online experience, which is the only place I do demos now. Somebody had asked about, when are the icons coming to desktop? So I will go out here to the release plan, and hopefully everyone's kind of gotten this desktop. Power Query diagram view in Power BI. And then I believe the new Power Query experience in Power BI Desktop. So 2 different items that are on the roadmap. I don't want you to look at this and say, well, when will that piece? When will this piece? When will this piece? I want you to say, when is the entire experience coming to desktop? That is the noise that I need from everyone within the community, everyone here, from obviously attendance here, because after tonight you'll be like, wow, That complete experience is everything that I hopefully want, kind of within my Power Query development. A lot of this out here listed on the public roadmap, so it looks like a March timeframe to have that hopefully as a preview feature within the desktop. But everything that's contained within Power BI, desktop, the offline client, or what you open in Excel, I don't want you to focus on that as the future. Cool. So that one takes care of that, and then we'll address some of Chris's items as well, kind of as we progress. First thing I want to do, at least starting within my Power Query environment, is to go and set up my global options. Like any developer, I may have some slight configurations that other people, they may not see value in, but I absolutely do. Search at the very top, Alt Q, just going to type in global options, press enter. Here's my global options menu. No different than if I was to go to options, global options here, just on the home ribbon, global options. From this now, some different steps that I hope you will look into enabling after today's call. So script and step callouts. Column profiling is always great to kind of get a sense of, are there empty records, or is maybe some distribution a little bit off within my data set. Column profiling, I don't want to profile the entire data set. I still want to have my Power Query environment be nimble. So let's just kind of sample that top 1,000 rows. Type detection, if you're like me, those change type steps, they always kind of burn you in the end when you've got change type 1, 2, 3, and you've got 10 of them at the very end of your applied steps. Turn it off. Hopefully you can just do that yourself at the very end, that last step. And then always allow for parameterization in data source and transformation dialogues. So if you've created a parameter, make sure that that can be used through the UI. Awesome. Pause here. How many people have configured their global options menu as of yet? Is this the first time you're seeing the window? Donald's done it. Fernando's done it. Awesome. Cool. That's okay. So one of the questions that Chris had asked, which I was having so much fun here within the chat, do these icons have a tooltip that tells people what they mean? Green on the right-hand side with my applied steps. If I was to hover above this now, I have the information. This step will be evaluated by the data source along with the learn more documentation. And then another item here within that script that we just enabled from our global options. I can now hover above each item within my steps. I can see the underlying Power Query M. I don't want to jump in the advanced editor. I don't want to click back and wait for the data preview. All of this is just ready here. So scripts and then the icon callouts. Whew. Yes. All right, let's jump in. Yeah, go ahead.
This is kind of a silly question. So navigation 1 doesn't have an icon. Is it just that once, if it says folding above, it just carries until it hits a not folding? Like it's a fill down interpretation.
You got it. Yep.
Okay.
Love the call out.
This right there was worth the price of admission.
Cool. So let's set up a scenario here. Sales order detail. It's our fact table. There's just way too much information. Everyone is telling me Power Query is slow. I just hear it nonstop. They're saying when I'm in my development environment, I'm just getting throttled all the time. One of the first things we should actually do is maybe introduce parameters. Here at the very top, I'm going to use Alt Q again. I'm just going to search for parameter, and then I'm going to create a new parameter. So in this example, I'm going to say row limiter type is going to be just a decimal number. And then we'll say, let's go ahead and limit it to 50 rows. So press OK. Awesome. Sales order detail. Keep top rows. Number of rows, I'm going to select from my parameter because we enabled that parameter choice before. And then I can select here for my row limiters. Question in the audience: have we broken the fold? Because I'm combining a primitive value that is outside of my native query over here.
No, you haven't.
Is it working, you said?
It's green. Yes.
It's green. Oh, you're right. Direct reference queries, row limiter, so I can see the parameter is also being referenced. A step evaluated by the data source. I was to right click this now. New data source query. Here at the very top, select the top 50 rows.
Did that also say you could see the plan?
That is correct.
So you're saying? Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
No, go ahead. I don't want to jump in.
I was going to make a joke.
Go ahead.
So, but my DBA doesn't let me see the query plan, so why am I going to get to see it here?
Yeah. So let's use that example. Here, the query plan will be generated. We've connected to a remote system. So that word I was using at the very beginning, I'm like, why does it keep saying remote? It now makes sense. In this example, we're connecting out to a SQL server. Here's the database, and then here's the native query that's being generated from our transformations. In every perfect query folding scenario, this is what the query plan looks like right here. System, native query.
But the query plan there is the Power Query or the M language query plan. It's not the SQL query plan that I think you are referencing, Alman.
Yep, that's correct. Yep.
Yeah, that's why it was a joke.
Yep. I would agree. It is not exact to what you would hope from like a data studio, but this is very much in line with kind of the low code citizen developers, and obviously simplifying those needs. I dropped this in the chat. Introduction to practical query folding. Some of the global options we just configured. Some of these step icons. Being able to view the data source query, and then obviously here, kind of with that query plan, which we just talked about. Anyone who's not at this session tonight, if it's a coworker, if it's a colleague, share this article with them. I think it's like 3 minutes worth of time. Hopefully get them to the bottom of the page. But everything we're doing tonight, we've explored in kind of written form there too. Awesome. So in this example, once again, we are using kind of our remote parameter. This way we can control our logic. But at a certain point, I need to load it all. Like that's just the reality. Search here again. I'm just in the keyboard shortcuts. Keyboard shortcuts and Power Query. Out here, things I would love to have in desktop. I've got a few of them, but creating a new blank query, getting into the advanced editor, Control-Shift-M, data preview, all these different things out here listed within the keyboard shortcuts. Control-Shift-M, now in the advanced editor, I want to introduce some logic. So in this example, if row limiters greater than 0, then table.first, else bring the entire navigation one step. Kept rows, view data source query, still to select top 50. Row limiters, I'm now just going to set it as a -1. And this way I can go ahead and load all the data. Kept top rows, I'm still within my fold. Right click, view data source query, no longer limiting the amount of data that's needed. Pause here. How many people are using parameters to kind of only return a subset of data before you're kind of ready to launch it into hopefully a production environment?
Yeah, I do it all the time.
It's good practice, isn't it?
Makes life so much easier and keeps your model so nice and small.
Yeah.
And then just push it to the service and then let it increase up there.
I agree. One of the items here, at least within data flows for kind of the Power BI environment, unfortunately, those parameters are not accessible through the workspace settings. So just kind of keep that in mind as you hit save and close and get ready to publish. You just want to change those row limiters or flags or parameters just at that last stage before you kind of hit publish.
Is there a reason for that, Alex?
It's something that they do want to expose. I believe it's probably just the time in which we're in between Gen 1 data flows and kind of the Gen 2 work. They really want to focus on kind of getting everyone to the Gen 2 platform, where we'll have a lot of these improvements.
Okay, cool.
Yep. Great question. Awesome. So let me try something here, because I'm going to set up another scenario. I've got a department. They're running some kind of codes. Maybe it's a customer list. I don't know, SKUs. They're just storing it out in an Excel file, a text file, a CSV file, and they want to kind of use that to control the data that's coming in. So in this scenario, they just want to say, if it's not in this list, don't show us. If we add a new product tomorrow, we want the new data to start showing up. Just a control table. 100%. I understand their needs and kind of their flexibility. In this example, I'm going to do get data from an Excel workbook. Here at the very top, I have my browse OneDrive. So instead of having to guess that crazy URL address, I'm just going to use the navigator here. And then I think jump into apps, files. Let me see here, color list. Not seeing it. Personal, documents, apps. All right.
You sure it's Excel and not a CSV file?
You're right. It is.
I did that one the other day.
Oh, all right. Let's do browse OneDrive for text and CSV. I was like, why is this file not out here? I only use it for demos. There we go. Color selection, select. The URL is right on the first time. Everyone should hopefully clap. How many people are using the browse OneDrive or even uploading files by just dragging and dropping today? Or maybe is it your first time seeing this capability? You've been doing it the long way, the hard way, kind of within the past.
How did you do
tried
the
to
drag and drop?
upload, but I've done the OneDrive.
Yeah. And Fernando, you had said you'd done the upload file as well?
No. How did you do the drag and drop?
Oh, yeah. From the upload file, you
Ah.
can drag and drop here just from that folder location. Then it will go and extract out that URL address.
Nice. No, I do the browse.
Yeah. So excited there. Keep an eye out on the release plan just for improvements to both the OneDrive and SharePoint experiences. Cool. So have a table here. Great. Color selection, we've now converted into this table. I'm going to jump in here. Awesome. And I want to use this against my list. We're going to jump out into the product table. I'm just going to create a duplicate here now. Delete. Product table. There we go. Cool. Got a lot of products here in color. If we click on this now, we can see our data profiling. So black, red, silver, yellow, blue, multi, a lot of different options here. We could also filter these events if we wanted to kind of remove them, but we understand ours has to be dynamic. So we need to take whatever's in this list and ensure that it's not returned from this product table. So we're going to do just a Alt Q, merge queries. Everyone's watching this search bar at the top, and they're probably like, I've never seen this before. Why is he moving so fast? Column 1, color. In this example, I'm just going to say inner. Evaluations canceled. Combining data from multiple sources may reveal from one to the other. Yeah, that's fine. I understand. Awesome. And then we can, if we wanted to, we could confirm that it's only kind of our colors here, red, black, blue. I don't really know that I care about that though. I can view that within our data profiling here. Control G, color. There we go. That worked. Can color here We now see only black, red, and blue. Delete my original column here for the merge. I don't need that anymore. Am I folding? No! Broke the fold. We broke the fold. Power Query didn't jump out and stop and tell me to stop, though, did it? It still let me move on to the next step, and the next step, and the next step. What was that term? Does anyone remember from the presentation at the beginning? Starts with P.
Don't break the fold.
Yes, definitely don't break the fold, but partial folding. This event, we were able to connect that to our database. We can see SQL Server, SQL generated here with that view data source query. After that, though, we connected out to kind of an outside source, just this text file stored out in a OneDrive, remove columns, deleted in another. So we added more steps on top of it. Partial folding occurred. They able to handle some of the operation using the remote system. So if we were to view query plan, some of it handled within the remote system of SQL database, some of it having to buffer into memory and then kind of stream in here to our final table. So remote, buffering, streaming, just some new icons here to kind of recognize within our query plan. Let's close. How can we get around this? What is a merge? Especially an inner in this example. Just removing rows where a condition isn't met. Maybe let's think about this. I'm going to delete these steps. I want to maintain the folding. Color selection in this example, I don't need it to be a table. Really, I can just use it as a list. So what is my operation? Drill down. There we go. So we've converted our table that we imported now into a list format. Right-hand side here, inconclusive step, if we recall. Inconclusive is return whenever it is a list, record, or table, or list, record, or primitive scalar value. So in this example, we have a list, inconclusive. Going back to product, I'll now do kind of colors, text filters contains, or I'll do a in statement. I'll select a query here now, and I'll say for colors in this list. It has to be that list icon.
Is that only in the service? I mean,
that's only in the service. Yeah.
Wow.
I'm telling you, Power Query Online is incredible. I need everyone to continue to point out to these items and say, this is the thing we want. Make sure it lands in kind of March. I've just been so excited to, showcase Power Query Online anywhere I can. Awesome. So in condition, in this query list, color selection, press OK. Data profiling, black, red, blue. Great to see there. Filtered rows on the right-hand side. We maintain query folding. View data source query. At the very bottom, it's now updated that where condition for us, where in red, blue, or black. Looking at our diagram view, so I'll do diagram view. At the very top, go ahead and enable that. Bring this down. Hand out my queries. I can see here my color selection query, source, drill down. I can also see my product query, leveraging kind of the enhanced compute in this scenario. I don't really need that. So I'll just actually disable this enable load in this scenario, and then everything is being done here. It could be a pro environment if you're still within pro licensing, or you could reserve a little bit that take back some power here if you're in the premium capacity by not having to use the enhanced compute engine in this particular scenario.
Alex, forgive my really short memory. What was the source for color selection? Where did you source those 3 colors?
Yeah, if I hover above, there's the M script documentation, which states I just sourced it from a SharePoint library.
This was the text file you were pulling it. Yeah.
Got it.
Okay.
I love these script icons here. Just hovering above, you can get all the detail. Cool. You pause here. Any questions about kind of having control tables from outside sources?
I'm sorry. Does someone else have a question? Because I don't want to.
You and me
Go
all
for
night
it.
tonight. Go for it.
Go on.
Well, it's just that I'm often in a situation where I have a mix of like a SharePoint and a SQL source.
Yep.
And I was thinking until you did this, I was thinking that, well, I'd better do all my SQL work first. You know what I mean? Because once I merge with the, exactly what you showed, right? Once I
Yep.
merge with something from SharePoint, now I've broken things and that's no fun. But now I'm still trying to wrap my head around why this worked. Like it will dynamically reread that SharePoint file when it refreshes and construct that SQL statement, dynamically construct that SQL statement, and then it will fold it back.
My God. Yes. Yes. I left a comment here in the chat too. You're seeing the magic in real time. It is the power of the language, with it being both a querying and functional language. So in this example, it was able to intelligently read the original system, or read the original file, determine that it's really just a list value here of 3 different items, and then construct kind of that final query statement.
That is absolutely incredible. So let me and then I'll shut up. Like, so you had that fantastic resource that Kevin shared with us last Thursday, where you list all the functions and what folds and what doesn't. And which is fantastic. So thank you for doing that. Yeah. So, but this thing that you just showed us is sort of orthogonal to that. It's not about a function that folds. It's about, it's something in the M language, right? Like, or I don't know. I mean, do you have thoughts on that? Like,
list.contains. That's all.
Folds. That was versus
the magic.
table. But the other one would be like a table.join or combine tables, whatever it is that merges.
Table.combine would do an append operation.
Okay.
So it would be a kind of a union.
Yeah, no, the one that before you converted to a list and you were doing a join, you were doing a table dot. I don't remember what it's called.
It was a table merge, right? Where it was producing the join.
Yeah.
But it was before he
join.
turned it into a list.
Yeah. So when you had it under merge queries, that I guess is not foldable in general. Like whatever
merge queries will still fold if it's within the same system. And in that example, like we were just doing, we had one system.
Yeah.
Yep, you got it. Yeah. So across formats.
Thank you.
I got it. I'm loving this though. Yes. This is why we're here tonight, because the next section, we're gonna dive even deeper. So please, jump in at any point in time. All right. So in this example, I need to find the min-max values to kind of filter within a specific threshold. Sales order detail, once again, I'm just going to duplicate this. Maybe remove some steps. I love this diagram view. I can see everything. But for my example, get that out of here. And table.min-max. So these are operations. So I'll do a blank query here, shared. So the complete function reference library. We'll convert this into just a table for filtering. So table, so hash shared, if you're unaware of that kind of keyboard command, converted into table. X filters begins with table dot. Two of the items here that I'm looking at is table.min and table.max. Get this data preview out of here. Table min, table max. You can get the function documentation here within the kind of the shared reference library, or at any point in time. I need to quit hitting that. Do Control M, new query. At any point in time in the formula bar, if you type in the function without the parentheses, so table.min, this will bring back that functional documentation just here within the editor. So table.min, table.max. Cool. So from my example, first one, I want to find the kind of maximum value here for my order quantity. So fx table.min or max order quantity. This is the right. Okay. Max. Person. There we go. Table.max. First columns in this example are double quotes. So here I now have product ID, order quantity, maximum value is 25. Look on the right-hand side here, applied steps. It is not folding, which I would expect it to. I mean, it's inconclusive. It's bringing back a record set, but I would want to obviously just drill into that single value. So for here, I'm actually going to do navigation 1, and we're going to do this for quantity, remove other columns. Max and order quantity. There we go. Inconclusive, not returning anything. What I would like to do is though jump into Azure Data Studio. We're just going to set up a trace here against this backend SQL server. Then I need to go ahead and refresh my data. So let's see this preview. Home, transform, refresh. Inconclusive. Wasn't able to determine. Out here though, got a lot of different events. And find our mash append here for the select top. There we go. On. Awesome. It told me it couldn't fold. It told me it was inconclusive. Out here though, looking at the actual server kind of logs, I am able to determine it is writing a select top 1 statement.
Do you get the sense there's anything non-deterministic about this? Like, because it said it was inconclusive, like you could come back in 2 weeks and it wouldn't fold?
They do make improvements, but kind of in the logic in which it kind of dictates with the icon folders. In this example, it's returning a record, so that key value pair. So it's saying, well, I'm sorry, I don't really know. It needs to be a table that's returned, which is interesting because I'm kind of faking that it's an actual table by turning to just this single column list. So it's very, also changes to min, like it can't determine, but that doesn't mean that I can't take advantage of kind of these folding benefits. So let me filter here now, text data equals or contains, select top. Awesome. So previously where we did descending order, now it's doing ascending order. Everyone is probably like, why don't you just use the SQL min or max function? It would be so much easier. I agree. Let's maybe try this then, kind of in a different way. So our original SQL, we had connected to advanced options. Let's do AdventureWorks, LT. and I am the best SQL generator in the world. So I will just take this and I'll say a max. Awesome. And you can tell I just care too much about formatting. Until end, we don't need any of that anymore. Same result, right? Folding indicator here. If I was to do kind of a new operation, custom column, say multiply. Let's do, my goodness, I have to give it a name. To give it a name. UTY. Custom column. There we go. 100 times quantity.
Ow, ow.
Yeah. What happened? That term again.
Yeah.
Starts with the P.
Yeah. Yeah. Partially folding.
Partial folding, yeah.
But it's not really folding anything, right? Because you gave it the SQL in the first step.
It folds the original step back to the remote system.
It's vacuous. There's nothing to fold. It's already,
Why not?
it's just sending the SQL back to the source.
Yeah, with the original step, I agree. So that first step, that most important one, as I'm the best SQL writer in the world, I'm just going to include everything kind of within that advanced options window, but I still maybe want to do one or two more things to the UI, just because it's easier than writing, maybe 100 lines of SQL. I've now broken the fold, taken that beautiful, elegant SQL statement here in my original. Fortunately, anything afterwards just having to be processed in the mashup engine. Let's approach this in maybe kind of a different way. Like Control-Shift-M. We're gonna get out here. Let's get rid of this. And query equals value dot native query. We're gonna use our source step. Our SQL query. And parameters are going to be null, and then enable folding. True. Table dot add column from query thing. I'll give it better names here in a moment. Man, I wish the scroll worked. So in this example, our query is just a string. It's just text that we're storing within that variable that's called SQL query. Our next step, obviously, is our source connection out to a SQL database. Query things. We're using the value.native query function to say, go out to my table that's located out here, generate and run the SQL query. I'm not passing in any additional parameters here, so I'm just stating null. But I do want to enable folding. So at the very end here.
Line 3, sir.
What am I missing?
Comma in line 3.
Comma in line 3. Great catch. Here we go. So once I'm ready, I can press OK. Cannot fold on top of this native query. We did this last time too. It was like a browser refresh and it worked. Well, I'll check on that example. I don't know why it's hit and miss. But here you could come out, you could run a statement. At that point in time, you could allow additional folding operations.
Is that something that you have made use of, or is it more experimental for you?
Alex, you're missing naming the column in the query again.
Am I? Let's take a look. Oh my goodness. All right. PCY. I think that's why it broke last time we did this demo. There we go. Of course it works now. So this is a great workaround if people are heavily reliant on kind of that advanced editor and they can't create views within the system. So if they are having to kind of copy and paste something from this original SQL query statement, and they want to do the low code operations, the enable folding flag is a great way to kind of hopefully push as much back to the original source system as you can, and then hopefully get them as far down the road as possible before they introduce kind of that partial folding activity. Or here, view data source query, our original query, as opposed to this crazy thing over here, select top one, that's just way too expensive. This is much more optimal, still gets us to the same conclusion. They'll use the UI at the very end. So that's where I would advocate for the enable folding when it's necessary. Also review the initial SQL. What am I doing? What am I possibly injecting with kind of these new UI based things on top of it, as opposed to can we just rewrite this completely in a single SQL statement? That's how I would position it. But I'll pause there. Other people are using it in different ways. I'll lose sleep tonight thinking about that. Awesome. And then I know we're at time here with 7.
Yeah, it's an ish type of thing.
Alex, I've got a
Yeah, go ahead, Anthony.
Yeah.
I got a question for you on that one. Is
Yep.
where you've put your type at the end of that at the end of your formula there, and
Yep.
obviously it hasn't broken your query folding. And we found when we were doing part of the 30-day challenge that if you didn't do that, but you did then a change type in the next step, then it would break the query folding. Now, what is the fundamental difference between the two places there?
That I'm a liar. That's a logical column. You're like, well, hold on. That's clearly not logical. This is a number. This is just a metadata attribute. I'm not casting the actual data type. So here I could say that this is a, what else is there? Type record.
Or make it text. I mean, doesn't that
Yep.
suggest that it could give you it's giving an NA. I thought we would get possibly inaccurate results because if you know what I mean?
Yeah, like in this example, I'm just attributing some metadata to the step. I'm not casting it or changing it in any way. So if I was to change this back and say, well, let's do a casting operation to change this from kind of a number into text with the transform of the column type. Obviously in this example, a bad one because SQL is able to translate it. But it can recognize and convert in certain scenarios. So Anthony, to kind of get back to your question, one is an actual transformation of the data, where the other one is purely just a metadata.
But then if it's just a metadata, so that won't impact when it comes through, when you do apply your changes, it won't sort of apply it. It won't apply a certain data type once it's come through essentially and you start working it within the data model.
Yeah, and that's where it's kind of an interesting handoff, at least between Power Query and the data model. Power Query supports numerous different types of numbers. So whether it's an 8, 16, 32 type decimal, etc. Whenever it comes to analysis services, it only supports int64.
Okay.
So everything there is kind of a interesting where I will hand off some metadata to the analysis service engine. It may or may not use it, but it will intelligently apply its own kind of algorithm and compression optimization to the data types that are being read in. So I would say, like, yes, if you have to cast your data types too, but otherwise, if it's small things like this, like added custom at the very top, we can then say it's a whole number. It's purely just metadata attributes for that data.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, great questions though. It's interesting behavior where I'm always testing it and kind of pushing its limits to see if I can some interesting stuff. Oh my gosh, table.transform column types, it did it. No, get that out of here. You're breaking my fold. I can never accept that. In 64.type. Cool. Well, let me do one last one, and then we'll kind of get to the hour, just because it's a rather fun one here. We're gonna do the two engines. So the comments earlier were like, how is this doing both the SQL side and then the mashup side, and then also like bringing it all back together. We did some min and max operations here in this example. I would like to find a median. There is no median within kind of the functional reference here. So table.median, if I can spell it correctly, median does not exist. Jumping over here, table.median, nothing, 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 nothing. But there is this list dot. Sort the rows, list.median at the very bottom. Function returns the median value in our list. Can I go back here? List.median, show me the full detail. So I have to pass in a list. Sales order detail, I'm gonna go ahead and right click this again because it appears to be my favorites. For our kept top rows. Order quantity, we're just going to go ahead and drill down. Now I have a list of values from that column. I'm going to go and do the list.median. I have the median value here now. Let me go and rename this step. Median order quantity. I now want to jump back into my original transformations here. My navigation 1. The reference to an earlier step here, navigation 1, kind of in this new step. And then I want to go ahead and filter the rows. So my order quantity here, go ahead and just say, we'll do 1 here at the very beginning. So instead of this hard-coded value, I want to have this kind of roll-in median. Here within our advanced editor, Control-Shift-M, I'm going to point to our median order QTY step value. This one here, just because that's bringing it a little bit easier. Here we go.
You gotta mistype your Q, yeah.
In order.
That first letter is a Q rather than an O for order.
Oh my goodness. Great catch. Cool. Right hand side. Did I break the fold?
Absolutely not.
Absolutely not. Oh my goodness. Median order quantity 3. So our mashup engine is able to intelligently read this data and find the final scalar value. Filter rows, we're just using that applied step. So if I was to look at our diagram view, maybe how is this laid out? Let me make this window a little bit smaller so we can see everything. There we go. Awesome. connected out to our source system. We have our navigation steps, obviously to get to our data, sales order detail. From there, though, I diverge a little bit here within my path. I use this list.median. It is an inconclusive step. Once again, this is returning just a scalar value, so a single value of 3. From that, though, I turn that into a stored variable, which I can then reference kind of downstream here. So I go back to my navigation 1 path, to my filter rows path, passing in that dynamic value. So if that changes at any point in time, I now have this still completed operation. Right click here, view data source query, where conditions equal to order quantity of 3, view query plan. I should expect to see that perfect diagram of just 2 different things here. So one is the database, one is the native query system, native query. In this example, I'm using 2 different engines. So once again, here I'm reading from the SQL Server. I'm doing a little bit more here, though, also with kind of reading from the order quantity list, and then generating that 3 value kind of at the very end. So 2 different engines still coming together. I can kind of jump around some partial folding and still end up with a completely foldable query here at the very end. So if there's an operation where you're like, I wish it could fold, it's not within the list here, hopefully they'll kind of get to it at some point in time. But you can do very inventive things, kind of leveraging 2 different engines kind of in this process.
So you went through your SQL trace a little bit fast, but
Yep.
Is it really running one query and it's bringing back all the values for the quantity? Then the mashup engine is determining that 3, and then it sends a second query over for where it's equal to 3?
You got it. Yep. So it's able to read in partial information here within just that order quantity that we're kind of reading in. And then here at the very end, completed state, it's going to say, all right, I've determined in the mashup engine the value is 3. When I have to do my final construction of the completed query, I'll just take that stored value and I'll create this SQL statement.
Interesting approach.
2 engines become 1. Awesome. Well, let me jump back in here then. It's wild. One of my favorites books here, and then obviously just a kind of a great mentor as well from the community, Gil Raviv. I love this chart. I try and use it as much as possible. Let me go into presentation mode. Cool. UI only, you can probably, hopefully solve like 45% of all problems that you kind of come across. Lightweight editing, at some point in time, you'll end up in that formula bar. You'll start seeing the transformation you did, what that translates into, and kind of this formula Excel-like world. A little bit of custom M, kind of jumping into the advanced editor, hopefully around that 80%. And it could just be like simple if this, then that conditions, like we had set up just at the beginning with our row limiter. Whenever you get into more custom functions, advanced editor, you can probably solve about 95% of problems. The really crazy stuff with list accumulate and list.generate, 99. And then of course, just whenever you're doing Power Query SDK all in Visual Studio Code, not even needing the editor anymore. My goodness, I tackle everything. I love this though. This is a great way to kind of ease people into Power Queries. Like, do I have to learn the M language? No, absolutely not. I would hope that you stay out of the M language as much as you can for as long as you can, and just focus on the UI operations. That's something that I'm finding myself doing more and more lately, stepping away from the advanced editor, doing UI first, just to really kind of get my hat on or my shoes back on as if I was a new user and kind of from their perspective. It's just been so much so helpful. Definitely though, up here is completely achievable though. Just a few concepts, learn the primitive values, learn the structured data types of a record list table. Like we saw in the control table, really all we did was take a list and use that as a filter condition, and we fixed a lot of merging issues that we may commonly see where they break folding with just thinking about the problem in maybe a different light. Cool. Closing
So-
remarks here. It's not about what you know, it's about what you know is possible. You probably saw a lot tonight. A lot of it's maybe like, oh my goodness, this is completely foreign. Maybe you're like, oh, Alex, I've seen this before. This is always fun to kind of pick up a few new tricks. It's a journey and we're all on it. So please feel free to connect with your local community or anyone kind of here on the call after today as well. But with that, Kevin, I'll throw it back to you.
Yeah, great job, Alex. There are 2 questions that I'm not sure you touched on.
Yeah.
That I captured. The first one was any difference removing columns or filtering rows first? Did we touch on that?
I would say it doesn't matter the order.
You were going to say it depends and cost $1.
No, never. I'll always be very explicit. Like, it's like in the past, I would be like, hey, prettier SQL will be generated if you do removing rows first and removing columns second. I don't see that as much anymore. We could kind of do that here as a test. I believe it's actually gotten pretty good with kind of generating some updated SQL. So let me delete until end. Here, do choose columns. Get rid of these last widths and stuff, and then we'll say keep top 100 rows. I think it'll actually generate a pretty decent SQL statement. Oh yeah. In the past, it used to do kind of a nightmare nested subquery, but it's gotten a lot better here recently. If we were to change the order of this, say, well, let's keep top rows, choose columns, 99%. What is happening here? No way that choose columns is not breaking. Keep top rows, choose columns. Oh,
So
embarrassing me here in
it
front of my
does
friends.
matter.
It doesn't matter. I don't know what it's yelling at me about.
It broke it. My question, he's broken it.
I think you need to be in desktop.
Let me try. I'm gonna do one more thing. I'm gonna avoid these other
Maybe it's
columns here.
Yeah.
And let me do just these, remove other columns. Still.
Maybe do
Alright.
it before they keep the top rows.
Yeah, but it should still be able to kind of understand. Like all we're doing is a top 100. So
Yeah.
I don't know why it's breaking. It should normally work. And then some of the behaviors within desktop and Power Query Online are still a little finicky, which is where I always be like, trust the logs of your SQL database if you can kind of get to it, or any other source system you have. Love the question
Okay.
though. But
The
definitely
second question was what sources do not have folding? For example, API source, tips to optimize steps that do not fold. It was a little outside our subject stuff, but maybe get a brief answer on some of that if you have any.
Certainly. REST APIs where you're kind of getting like a JSON response, those would not fold. So in those scenarios, yeah, unfortunately, having to download all that information into the mashup engine, especially if you're having to do tons of data, I may recommend looking to other services, whether it be like a Logic Apps, Power Automate, Azure Data Factory. Those may just be better sources to kind of handle that response. If it's a system that has a backend database, so think of like a SQL servers, Oracle, Teradata, Dataverse. Obviously, we have Scott Sewell here on the line. He's doing some awesome work over there. A lot of those do support query folding operations. I wish there was a more exhaustive list that I could point to, but maybe that's some feedback I can take back to the team.
And I didn't mark down who asked that question, right?
Oh, that's a great question.
The thing that I always tend to think of, right, is whatever the source is, kind of summed up what you said, it has to have some type of processing engine behind it, right? So like a text file doesn't have a processing engine, regardless where you store that text file. But other type of things that have a processing engine could those are going to be your best choices to query fold, right? But you know, think of it that way, right? If you're going, like you said, any database system, most likely that's going to query fold. So
I agree. Question for the audience here, because I was using
Doesn't
search
Excel
quite a bit.
doesn't Excel have a processing engine? Not really.
It does have a calculation engine, but yes, it would be funny if we could get that to fold. Oh,
And then Jack snuck one into the chat that we'll cover that, and we'll make that the last question.
Yeah,
And I think this has been his question ongoing, right?
yeah.
Duplicate or reference any performance differences. People have been throwing that into the Guy in a Cube live stream lately too.
Yes. So duplicate would be just obviously duplicating the exact logic. Something I wouldn't recommend if you don't need it. Where I always kind of set up my development is, especially if there's like, well, I'm really just tapping the same thing and I'm just kind of branching it in maybe a slightly different manner. That's where I would point towards like a reference query. So in this way, you have all of your transformation logic up until the point which you're saying, well, I now want to kind of branch off a little bit, but I still want to have these original steps. Here in this example, the reference, it references my original query, which is the direct reference query of sales LT, sales order, open parenthesis 5, close parenthesis. It's just a great way to kind of leverage that original logic.
And remember, what you're duplicating or referencing is the code, not the data. So if you have two tables, two queries defined in your Power Query, it still is going to send that query back to your engine twice.
Yeah, and that's where at least with referencing, you can have like what is it called? Desktop parallel loading. You can like disable parallel loading, and you can stage your data a lot better. Just a lot more efficient processing, kind of using referencing. I can share a resource there, kind of to handle that. But I would always advocate for reference where you can.
Okay, great.
Awesome.
Let me get
Question for me. I'm ready. Can I ask a question here of the audience, Kevin?
You could ask, sure.
Fantastic. Search experience. I don't see enough people talking about it. I demoed it a lot tonight. If this was your first time seeing it, what are your initial impressions?
I haven't used it a whole lot, and I'm going to use it now. From what you showed, I thought it was great, right?
Yep.
And I definitely need to use it more to improve my skills. So,
anybody
else?
Yeah. Please feel free to chime in. If anyone else had comments.
I was literally going to ask, like, how come I can't, because I only work in desktop, how come I don't get this search feature like Excel and Word where they're like, ask me what you want to do or tell me what you want to do. And then it's already here. I can't believe it.
I know. And this is why it'll be great whenever we can kind of bring the online experience in kind of the offline environments like desktop and Excel and all the other places. Reason why I enjoy this, at least actions, get data, sources, people out on Twitter have yelled at me like, when can I search my query list? I have 100 queries. If I was to type in over here, color selection, right there, I can look up any of my queries.
That's nice.
So a lot of these capabilities are out here. Sales LT, I typed into dim, fact, whatever my prefixes are, I have that complete list. Why I'm excited about search and why I kind of highlighting a lot here, natural language. Cool. This item out here, out on the release plan. Everyone is seeing kind of the GPT craze. That is coming into Power Query Online and will be infused within the global search.